So the question we have for this webinar is, how do you resize text in the machine? Now, first we'll talk about the onboard fonts. This, by the way, applies to all current model Happy embroidery machines, both all the single head machines, the 15, 12, and the 7, as well as the multi-head machines. So going into the main screen by pressing next, first of all, from initial power up, what we're looking for is the text function. You can see this is in cap mode, which is not a big deal. But we'll go ahead and go to the main menu and go to the text function. So this is one way. The onboard text has 12 fonts. Press letter in the main menu, and you have this function. You can either type all caps, lowercase. You can type any combination. But basically, once you've done that, just follow the prompts. So hit set. It'll take you to the next step. So for example, the next one is choose your alphabet. So I'll choose an alphabet. And then setting the size, you can see it automatically made this upside down because it's in cap mode, which we'll talk about later in another section. But as far as setting the size of that, that's done by this middle button here. Press this ABC. You can see the current height is 25 millimeters. And I believe this remains in inches. I'm not sure, or in millimeters. So 25 millimeters is almost exactly an inch tall. 20 millimeters is about 3/4 inch tall, and 15 millimeters is just over half an inch tall. So I don't recommend you go down to 4 millimeters height with any of these letters, and 7 would be the lowest, but 25 is the tallest if you want to set your lettering text height. So let's say we set it to 25 millimeters, then what happens is that this becomes 25 millimeters high, as in the capitals, and it shows you the horizontal length, which is 4 1/4 inches. So that's how you set that. There are other settings that you can do, but this is basically how you set the height of the onboard text. And when you're done with that text, you can basically go to the home screen, and it sets it up as a design. It automatically gives it the name ABC, and asks you to set a color and pick any of the available 12, 15, or 7 needles. And now it's, for example, going to go to needle 9 when you sew this out. And that's ready to go. Okay, now there's another way to set text height that we would talk about, which is that what if somebody brought in lettering height from another design? So one important distinction here is the machine does not have a stitch processor. So if you resize any of the text will not change in stitch count. So our recommendation is to make only small changes in height. But that being said, sometimes your text will be close to a hoop size. For example, let's choose let's get out of cap mode here, and let's choose a standard hoop. Let's say a 15 centimeter round, which everybody gets. And you can see that we'll center that up, and you can see that that'll actually just fit. But let's say that we wanted to go to a 12 centimeter round, 12 centimeter. And now you can see that doesn't fit. So that's a very typical scenario where maybe you want to resize your text or anything else. So in this case, if it's an existing design and not something that you set up yourself, and you want to shrink that so it fits inside the red safety margin here, go into your main menu, and then adjustments to the design are done with setting. So if you press setting, you have several things that you can adjust, which we can go over in another video, but the concern right now is the first 2 blanks, which are your scaling. So let's say that you want it to be, this is right now 4 1/4 inches wide, so we probably wanted to go about 3 1/2 inches wide. So let's scale that so to about maybe 80%. I'm just making a rough guess. And then take that to 80%, the height and the width together, otherwise you're distorting your text. And let's take a look at it. So we go home, and we can check to see our fit, and you can see that now this actually easily fits. Maybe we want to scoot it over just a little bit, so that now we have a little bit of safety margin. So that's how you would do your text, basically rescaling text that's already existing in a design. Go to your main menu, go to setting, and change your scale percentage there in both your X, Y. Be warned that you will not have a stitch count adjustment, because if you shrink something, technically you should reduce the stitches a little bit. If you enlarge something, you should add. But if you are making small adjustments, no more than plus or minus 20%, generally you should be okay. There are exceptions to that in a more in-depth lesson, but follow those lessons, and that's good for generally for resizing text. Your happy embroidery machine.